So I've been watching a lot of Starfield Endgame videos lately, and I've come to learn three things. The first of which is that nobody understands how to pronounce cesium correctly. The second is that people still don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And the third is that now some people are just straight up lying to you. But before I get into exactly why those other guys are full of shit, I do want to clarify that the setup I'm going to show you is unbeatable. Nothing will ever top it. Not alien genocide, not space exploration, nothing. Now some of you are probably going to pop in the comments and say, well Vash, you really never know. I do. Barring a new content update that either changes how things work entirely or adds new items to the game, there's nothing that can be done to beat this. And anyone who ever tries to claim otherwise is cordially invited to eat my ass. Speaking of people who are invited to eat my ass though, let's talk about the people lying to you. Because the biggest misunderstanding or lie that they tell is about how the XP banner works. Obviously, any XP you earn is going to show up on screen, but the misunderstanding stems from XP that is earned while an XP banner is already active. So let's say you kill an enemy and you gain 40 XP, and then you kill another enemy right after to get another 40 XP. The XP banner will still only show 40 XP. The number isn't going to change to 80 just because you killed another enemy within the 4-second time frame that the first banner was up. Instead, it will wait for the first banner to finish, and then it will make another banner that displays all XP gained during the 4-second window that the first banner was up. And how people are misleading you with that is they're doing these crafting outpost videos where they show a banner pop up for, 7,000 XP, and then they're trying to claim that that's what you get per second or per craft, and that is entirely bullshit. And I think the funniest example I've got to give you here was a video where they on the thumbnail said 10,000 XP per second, last XP farm you'll ever need, and then they go through this whole 20-minute setup process, and then at the end their end result XP banner only shows 7,000 XP. As we know, an XP banner lasts for exactly 4 seconds, which means in that 4-second window he only actually earned 1,750 XP per second, not the 10,000 he claims on his thumbnail. So if you ever see someone showing you an XP banner, and they're doing a farming method that assumes that they'll be earning XP constantly back to back, take the XP banner and times it by 15, and that is the actual amount that they'll be earning per minute. So the guy who did his whole 10,000 XP per second bullshit, all we have to do is take his 7,000 XP banner, times it by 15, and that means he only gets 105,000 XP per minute, which is a far cry from the 600,000 XP per minute that he was trying to claim he had. So the main takeaway here is just, if you see XP farming where the XP is constant, then in order to find out how much they are actually earning per minute without just taking their word for it, take the amount that shows on their XP banner, multiply it by 15, and you have your result. Getting into the video though, I'm sure some of you are going to look at this chart and think, oh dear God, why? But it's important to clarify that while there are 15 different outposts that we'll be using to make this setup happen, they're only going to span across 7 different planets. Some planets will have multiple outposts, but obviously given that we are using 15 different outposts, this is not a beginner setup. This assumes that you leveled on your own or you used the last video I made in order to level up and rank your outpost skills to where they need to be. The only outpost skill that doesn't need to be maxed is the botany skill, which only needs to be at 1. But as long as you've done that and maxed the rest, you're going to be just fine for everything we talk about. Given that there are multiple outposts per planet though, that's how this video will be structured, planet to planet, explaining the setups required before moving on to the next. So if you're looking at the chart wondering how the fuck all this spaghetti ties together, just hang tight and I will explain. The first place we will go is the Porrima system to Porrima II-B, and we're going to make 3 different outposts on this planet, which are all incredibly simple, but I will quickly outline how they work. This is what all 3 helium outposts are going to look like. At a glance it may seem like a shitfest, but it's really just 3 simple steps. Extract the helium, store the helium, and send the helium. On the extraction bit, this may look like overkill given how many extractors I have placed down, but it is extremely important to have a massive amount of helium generation, because if you don't, then you're not going to have enough fuel at all times to keep all your other cargo links running in all the other systems. And if you can't keep your cargo links running all the time, that's really going to bottleneck the hell out of everything we're trying to do. So the amount of helium that is on the ground when you're going to place is important. You want a lot on all 3 bases. The first base will be different from the second and third bases though, solely because they will have intersystem cargo links. Intersystem meaning that they use helium in order to send the cargo to a system that is not their own. So when it comes to sending the helium, you not only need to link your helium storage to the cargo box that is outgoing, which is red or on the right side, but you also need to link your helium storage to the fuel receptacle of each intersystem cargo link that you have placed. Just remember that when you're setting up base 2 and 3, that you're using regular cargo links, not intersystem cargo links. So the ones you're going to place down there will only have an outgoing and an incoming box, but they will not have a helium fuel receptacle because you don't need helium in order to send things within the current system. This is something we will take advantage of to great effect later. Also, just a general reminder, you're going to make your life a whole lot easier if you name your outposts. The first base I would name outer helium, and then the second and third bases I would name inner helium 1 and 2, just so later when you're in the cargo link menus on other outposts trying to determine which outposts you need to link from, you'll be able to tell which one is sending out of the system and which one is sending within the system. But that is all you have to do for your 3 helium bases. Now that your helium supply bases are all set up, we're going to head out to the ass crack of nowhere to the Katydid system, to Katydid III. Here you will also be setting up another 3 bases, but it can be 4. You want 2 bases to have Indicite, and you want another 2 bases to have Silver. I personally ended up finding a spot that had both Indicite and Silver, so I was able to cut down the outpost required here from 4 to 3. If you would like to see exactly how I found that location so you can try and find it yourself, I will have an unlisted video in the description that you can open up and follow along to try and find the same location. Assuming that you do though, here is how you'll want to lay out these 3 outposts. Our first base on Katydid is the one that has both Indicite and Silver, so we're right on a biome crossing between 2 biomes. Though again, you don't have to do that. If you just want to split it up, you can. But if you did do it like I did, then all 3 bases are going to start the same. We have a cargo link bringing in helium from our outer helium plant, but just remember that we only have incoming helium. This is not a helium base. We will never send helium out. All we're doing is assigning our helium to our helium storage, and then assigning the helium storage to our cargo link fuel receptacles. Since this outpost in particular is going to be a bit heavy since it has both Silver and Indicite, we actually use 2 of our 6 cargo links in order to bring in helium from our helium plant on Porrima II-B. But otherwise, we are doing almost the exact same thing with our helium plant, just with Silver and Indicite. We aren't going to link the Silver or Indicite cargo links anywhere just yet. All we're doing is making sure that we have extractors pulling out both materials, sending them to their own individual storage, and then each storage type links to 2 cargo links. So Indicite has 2 cargo links, and Silver has 2 cargo links. And once you've set that up, you're done. Outpost 2 will be only Silver. So it's going to be this exact same thing, but it's only going to have 1 cargo link bringing in helium, but it will still have 2 outgoing cargo links for Silver, which again, you will not link anywhere. Technically, the 3rd base could be overkill depending on your setup. I personally found that Indicite was a big bottleneck and I didn't have enough of it, so that's why I ended up adding the 3rd base on Katydid, specifically for Indicite. And that one functions just the same as the Silver-only outpost. It has 1 cargo link bringing in helium and 2 cargo links sending Indicite out. Next, we're going to head over to Codos, which is a moon of Aquila in the Cheyenne system. There's a bit more to this one that we'll explain, but this is about how this outpost will go. So Codos is a bit weird for several reasons, but I want to clarify that no other outpost will be like this. On Codos, we need to make solvent. And to make solvent, we need to place greenhouses. But greenhouses won't show in the Builder tab unless you've actually finished scanning to completion whatever plant from the planet that you would like to make. So just to clarify, you can only place greenhouses on planets that actually have the plants. And you can only grow plants from that planet. Greenhouses are kind of annoying because they require a water hookup in addition to the plant scan. But here are the rules for greenhouses, and I recommend you follow them. 1, place the greenhouse. 2, interact with the console on the greenhouse and tell it what to make. 3, hook up water to the greenhouse. 4, hook up the greenhouse to your desired storage unit. If you don't follow these steps, you're going to notice very quickly that changing what the greenhouse is meant to make will break all links attached to it, meaning it would suck really fucking hard if you went around placing a shit ton of greenhouses, linking their water, linking their storage, and then you tell them all what to do, only to notice that you just broke every single storage link that you just made. The general idea for this outpost, though, is obviously we're bringing in helium on an intersystem link, using that helium to fuel 4 other cargo links in addition to the one that brought it in, and then we are making as much solvent as we can using greenhouses and water. Water we're getting from water extractors. You really don't need that many. The amount of water that these greenhouses use is piddly. But the reason you want as many greenhouses as you see on screen is simply because solvent can become a bottleneck resource in that you don't have enough of it. But I will say you don't need as many greenhouses as I have. I just got tired of running out, so I ended up making a whole shit ton. After you have your solvent and you're linking it to your storage, all you're doing is sending that solvent out on 4 different cargo links. And then we are on to Porrima V-C. You're going to make 2 different outposts on this this one, and they will both be identical. In terms of where to land, the entire planet is considered one biome, meaning that the entire surface of the planet will have antimony, gold, and copper. So you don't need to worry about landing between any specific biomes. I was able to land literally anywhere, and I stumbled right onto antimony, gold, and copper right off the bat. So all you need to do is find 2 different locations in which you can find a fair amount of these materials. So here's how they will go. 5C is where things are going to start changing up a little. Instead of our usual helium bit, remember that because we are within the Porrima system, we can use a regular cargo link without expending any helium to bring helium from one of your helium bases from the Porrima system. Just make sure that you link one of your bases that you named inner helium. After you've done that, you're going to have 2 cargo links bringing in silver from one of the Katydid outposts. Then with the silver that you are bringing in, as well as the copper that you have on site, you're going to feed the storages into simple fabricators to create 0 wire. You can select what the fabricator will create by interacting with the fabricator or selecting which fabricator before you even place it. Remember though that the material storage has to link to every individual fabricator, which is why on screen here you see the end of the copper storage linking to all 8 simple fabricators, and then you see the end of the silver storage also doing the same thing. Only once these fabricators have links to all the materials that they need will they actually output your creation. Every single fabricator needs to link to a storage to deposit the 0 wire, but remember that the storage, because this is a manufactured good, can't just be solid storage anymore. This has to be a warehouse. So what we're doing is we're making 0 wire, sending it to the warehouse, and then we're using the 0 wire warehouse, pairing it with the antimony and the gold that we are also making on site. And then we are feeding all of them. Remember, once again, you have to hook each storage up individually to each fabricator, to compound fabricators, which we have another 8. The compound fabricators are set up to create semi-metal wafers, which again we feed into a warehouse storage unit because they are a manufactured unit. Then we are feeding these semi-metal wafers into 2 outgoing regular cargo links, not intersystem, just regular, because where they're going to be going is within the Porrima system. And now that that's all good, let's head over to Porrima II. Note that this is not Porrima II-B like we had our helium farms on. This is just Porrima II. And again, we're going to have 2 outposts here that will be identical. The only thing we care about is that these outposts have cesium. But as long as you can find that, you can put these outposts wherever you would like. The planet is literally drowning in cesium. Land anywhere and you will find it. Porrima II is going to look fucking nuts at a glance, but I need you to realize that all these lines are not that complex. All they are storage units connecting to over 20 different fabricators. To overview the outposts though, as before, we have a regular cargo link bringing in helium from Porrima II-B, then we have another cargo link bringing in semi-metal wafers from 5C, and then we're using the helium that we're bringing in to power 3 more cargo links, one of which brings in Indicite, the other brings in Solvent, and then the other brings in Indicite again. Our helium also powers a 4th cargo link that sends our output out to another system, which we'll talk about in a second. But all we're doing here is we're taking the cesium that we're going to generate on site, along with the semi-metal wafers, the solvent, as well as the Indicite that we're bringing in, and we're linking all 4 of these storage types to 20 to 25 multiplex fabricators. We have that many as opposed to the 8 regular fabricators or compound fabricators that we're using on other outposts, because multiplex fabricators craft at the speed of a dying turtle. You're going to need about 20 to 25 in order to actually make your production worthwhile. But all of these fabricators are creating what are called Indicite Wafers, and we take these wafers, output them to a warehouse, and then we output the warehouse to our outgoing cargo link. And then for our second to last step, we are going to head over to Porrima IV-D, and we're going to make 3 different outposts here, 2 of which are going to be the same, but one is going to be different than the other 2. The first outpost we just want plutonium from, which is again all over the planet. The second and third outpost though, we want uranium, which is also all over the planet. You really won't have to try that hard to find these, but here is how each setup will go. The plutonium outpost is going to be remarkably simple. All you're doing is bringing in helium on a regular cargo link since we're still within Porrima. We're using that helium to fuel 2 outbound cargo links, with which we are sending plutonium that we are extracting on site. The other 2 outposts are going to be the same as each other, though it's still different than the first one. We're going to bring in helium on a regular cargo link. We're going to extract uranium on site. And then on another regular cargo link, we're going to bring in semi-metal wafers. And then on an intersystem cargo link, we're going to bring in solvent. Then we're going to combine the uranium, the solvent, and the semi-metal wafers into compound fabricators, which again, 8 is a good number. And we're going to create nuclear fuel rods, which we will output into a warehouse that will output to an intersystem outbound cargo link. And then lastly, we will head to DECARAN VII-B. This is the final step and the last outpost. This will be your hub or main base where all the magic happens. There really won't be a whole lot going on at this outpost. The most important part by far is that your outpost is able to extract both helium and Vytinium. Vytinium is used in the crafting recipe, and then being able to generate helium on site will allow us to skip dedicating an entire cargo link to bringing in helium. And since we have a cargo link free, this means we're able to bring in 2 cargo links worth of nuclear fuel rods, 2 cargo links worth of Indicite Wafers, and 2 cargo links worth of plutonium, which basically doubles the rate at which we'll be able to craft this. As for what we are crafting, it is Vytinium fuel rods. Now, some of you have probably already commented asking why we didn't just stop the process at Indicite Wafers and call it good. Because Indicite Wafers are what the other people I've been shitting on have been making videos about. Because Indicite Wafers give 7 XP per craft, so if you craft 99 of them, that's 693 XP per craft, and you can obviously spam that to be pretty fast. The problem with that is that in order to make Indicite Wafers, you already have to use cargo links. It's impossible not to. And if you're using cargo links, you are bottlenecking the amount of materials that can ever come into an outpost every 3.5 minutes. Because that's about how long it takes for a cargo link to function. I want to say it was actually like 3 minutes and 50 seconds when I tested it. But cargo links can only carry so much. So if you're going to limit the amount of items that you can craft in a given session, why would you stick with the craft that gives you less XP? Because Vytinium fuel rods give 10 XP per craft, but Indicite Wafers only give 7. That may not seem like much, but the difference of 3 more XP per craft absolutely shits all over Indicite Wafers and everyone who's been peddling them. To lay out this outpost though, we're just extracting helium on site and using it to fuel 6 intersystem cargo links. The first 2 cargo links are going to be bringing in plutonium. The second 2 cargo links are going to be bringing in Indicite Wafers, and then the last 2 cargo links are going to be bringing in nuclear fuel rods. Pair the 3 incoming resources with the Vytinium that we can generate on site, and we now have everything that we need to craft Vytinium fuel rods. But now that you have everything to craft, all that's left to do is profit. But like I mentioned at the start of the video with some text on screen, the amount of XP you can gain per minute will vary depending on how you pull this off. If you're just doing everything manually on PC, you're probably going to be closer to around 180,000 to 200k XP per minute. But if you want to beat 200k, a macro is obviously going to get involved. I will include the general macro schematic down in the pinned comment below. But the timing is going to be different for everyone depending on what macro program you end up using. Because if your timing is too tight, then what will happen is what you see on screen. Sure, you're getting big bursts of XP, but there are times when the timing is too tight and your XP banners are going to be all over the place. But with enough tweaking, you'll get it down to where your computer can execute 3.75 crafts per second, or 15 crafts in an XP banner. But if you really want to optimize it, if you perfect the timing, you can get a maximum of 4 crafts per second, meaning 16 crafts in 4 seconds. That may not sound very worth it, but the difference between 15 and 16 crafts per second is the difference between 270k XP per minute and 307k XP per minute. Now this will obviously vary depending on your XP bonus. If you're curious what type of XP ranges you should be expecting depending on your XP bonus, I've given a breakdown on screen. As for how you can achieve these XP bonuses, obviously sleeping will give you the well-rested bonus for 10% bonus XP, but if you have a romanced companion, it turns into a sexp bonus of 15% called emotional security. There are also other food-based options, like any of the tranquility beverages, shepherd's pie, or grandma's meatloaf, or whatever the fuck it's called. But using these, you can get up to a maximum of a 21% XP boost. And assuming that you are able to manage the 4 crafts per second, this means that you are able to reach 306.6k XP per minute, which will utterly shit all over anything that you've ever done before. In terms of crafting farms, this is the best, unquestionably. So even on Xbox, this will, at a minimum, be at least a 42% increase on your XP gains. Because even if you can't spam it as fast as we can, it's still a fat chunk of XP. And even earlier, when the timing was too tight on the macro and the XP banners were all over the place, I was level 198, and I gained 5 levels in 1 sitting. And that 1 sitting did not take very long, even with all the screw-ups that the macro was doing. So if you're on Xbox and worried that this isn't going to work out for you, it will. And then once you have whatever you want to set up in terms of how you achieve this XP. It is also important to note that yes, this is not something you can do infinitely. This is something you have to take a break from, because like I said earlier in the video, only so many materials can come through on a cargo link. We can remove as many bottlenecks as we can to make sure that the maximum amount of materials are actually coming through the links, but there is still a bottleneck of the links themselves. But even at level 200, I was able to gain 5 levels in less than a minute. But if we are crafting for 1 minute, I'd like you to realize that it would have taken 10 minutes to achieve that same result while crafting adaptive frames. And if we craft for 10 minutes, let's say you really went nuts on your storage capacity, then 10 minutes of crafting Vitinium fuel rods is equivalent to 1 hour and 40 minutes of crafting adaptive frames. The appeal here isn't that you can do it infinitely, because you can't. The appeal is that it generates so much XP that you don't have to do it infinitely. It's something that you do where the XP is condensed into one very small window, so that way you can go and play, then come back, earn XP, then go and play, come back, go play, come back. And that is why this type of XP farm trumps out all the others. You don't have to sit there crafting adaptive frames for 30 years, and you don't have to sit there plinking away at aliens like it's fucking Duck Hunt. I recognize it's rich for me to say this, given how long this will take you to set up, which is maybe an hour or two. It took me way longer. But this is the XP farm that actually allows you to play the game, and the only thing that will ever do anything close to this or better is just using console commands. So if you don't want to do that, this is the absolute best thing you're ever going to find. And then the inevitable, how does this turn into money? Every Vitinium fuel rod sells for 130. And I don't mean its fake sale value. I mean its actual sale value. So one crafting session gave me 1.65 million worth in credits. How you choose to go about offloading these materials is entirely up to you. Find whatever vendor you like. Go to Aquila and camp the chair. Go to the key and get your 5 vendors that are all there. Do whatever you'd like. But for reference, plutonium, which is the tried and true money farm that everyone likes to try and say is good, only sells for 10, and adaptive frames only sell for 3. So in comparison to adaptive frames specifically, not only are we getting 10 times the amount of XP, we are getting fuckloads more credit value. And then lastly, troubleshooting steps. Because outposts are the buggiest shitfest I've dealt with in a long time. But if this video goes on any longer, I may die. So instead, I will have all the troubleshooting steps down in the pinned comment below. If you're watching this on TikTok, then come on over to YouTube after reporting whatever channel stole my content. But if you're watching this already on YouTube like a normal human being, I'm proud of you.